A boy takes an experimental drug that amplifies his senses, unaware of the impending chaos it will unleash. The most important day of his life. Remember that you can support the channel by clicking the join button. In this way, you can become members of Planet Summary and access a bunch of rewards like stickers, exclusive posts, shoutouts at the end of the video, and even choose the next movie. Let's summarize. Now yes, go join Planet Summary and we'll get started. Meet Daryl, a college guide, on the first day of school as he leads a group of incoming students. His job is to show them all the facilities, and he does it quickly because he has several jobs due to his financial problems. He decides to rest upon arriving at his room. But he receives a call from his mother, who asks about the new job he wants to get to pay for his university fees. The problem is that our protagonist has a lot of competition and his mother is also in debt. So Daryl decides to lie to her, telling her that he has been shortlisted to avoid worrying her more. To make matters worse, he receives a call from the university about his overdue tuition. Lacking the funds, he pretends to be his mother to avoid answering. Later, Daryl goes to the hospital to sell his blood on several occasions until he ends up fainting. That's why he decides to go to a fertility clinic to sell his genes. In exchange for $50 per vial, he also does this on several occasions until he ends up very weak. But since he still needs to get money, he decides to go to a beauty salon to sell his hair again, offering his lower hair, since the top one is very short. But the barber does not accept it. At home, they meet Tim, his best friend, who mentions the landlord has been searching for him to collect rent. And later we see him working at the cafe to continue raising money. There he meets his classmate Scott, who boasts about being the perfect candidate for the job our protagonist wants. And soon after, Daryl is paralyzed when he sees a pretty girl named Janice arrive. The following day, he attends a class discussing the assistant analyst position contest. The professor introduces Mr. Randall, who announces that only 5 students from the class will be shortlisted and just 1 will be nominated for the position. During the conversation, Daryl demonstrates he has the skills to compete for the position, despite his colleagues' attempts to diminish him. Later on, our protagonist asks the hockey team's coach for a chance, as he needs to play sports to get the job. But when he tries out, he is quickly beaten up. While picking up trash for work, he discovers a flyer from the Department of Neuropsychology offering payment for participating in an experiment, which consists of testing a new drug that can expand the 5 human senses 10 times more. The woman in charge then reads the medication side effects, prompting all applicants to leave, except for Daryl, who dozed off during the dull presentation. That's why they send him to the doctor in charge of the experiment, who gives him the drug and explains how to inject it. That night, he attends a fraternity party and talks to Janice for the first time, successfully flirting with her despite the slightly strange conversation. That's why he decides to try the drug, and the next day he starts to notice the effects, as his sense of smell dramatically intensifies. He also abruptly hears some sounds, and because of this, he decides to withdraw from the exam because he ends up dazed. When he goes to the doctor, he begins to feel a desperate itch in his rear, as a side effect of the drug, which is working successfully. And he just has to wait for the brain to adapt to these new sensations to have total control of his senses. At home, he attempts to block his senses, but it's futile. When speaking with his best friend, it's revealed that Daryl wasn't chosen as a finalist for his desired job. By staying, he just starts to take control of himself. First, he chooses which sounds to listen to and then expands his view to see the backside of a girl walking down the street from his room. That night, Daryl works as a waiter at a university celebration dinner. While there, he overhears 2 colleagues flirting, and as he tries a snack, he tastes each ingredient. So he takes advantage of these new powers to serve Randall Scott and other important people from the university, whom he leaves surprised with his knowledge about economics. At first, Scott does everything possible to ruin his plan, asking him for wine butter and other things to distract him. But in the end, our protagonist becomes the 6th finalist to compete for the position. The next day, he goes again to the doctor, who confirms that his senses are working in an unparalleled way. And he warns him not to exceed the dose, as this is a drug and not superpowers. Later, he attends another university party to keep surprising Randall and the other directors, who insist Daryl join the fraternity. Scott disagrees with this. While there, he eavesdrops on Janice and her best friend's conversation. Janice expresses her desire to meet a respectful, intelligent, and self-assured man without conceit. Daryl knows how to get a day with her. Shortly after, he surprises her and convinces her to go to his house. On the way, he tells her about his family history, and Janice tells him that her family pressures her to study law. But does she really have a passion for poetry? There, Daryl finds a rice grain in the trash using his keen sense of smell. When he arrives at the girl's house, he successfully arranges a date with her. At home, it's time for his second dose of medication. As he injects himself in the butt, Daryl's best friend catches him in the bathroom and mistakenly believes he's addicted to illegal drugs. The next day, he goes back to the hockey team coach to get a new trial. And this time, he manages to catch each one of the pucks, leaving everyone impressed. With this, he not only joins the team but also plays in the game held that same day. The university team's record is poor and they need a new player to lead them to victory. Thanks to his powers, Daryl doesn't let any disc from the opposing team pass, while his teammates score enough points to achieve victory. He then goes to an interview for the selection process. While waiting, he overhears Scott's interview. During the interview, he discovers he needs to persuade the other executives to select him for the role, giving him another chance to surprise Randall. Since there are very high expectations about the perfect candidate, and also a lot of competition, so Daryl promises to exceed them. Randall informs him that the board will decide in 5 days and provides him with Knicks game tickets. To meet Bob, another company member, they aim to impress Arnold, a potential client, convincing him will bring them closer to securing the job. He then takes Janice to his house for a dinner date, and at one point he uses his powers when he starts reading a poem in one of his best friend's books, who is locked in his room. With this, he impresses her once more, earning a passionate kiss, although his excitement quickly fades due to his heightened senses. The next morning, he returns to the fertility clinic to sell a giant drum with his jeans. But the nurse dismisses his concerns and later brings his new girlfriend to meet his family. With his keen sense of smell, he finds out his younger brother has been smoking. He discovers his grades are low. Later, he gives his mother money to help with her debts. Back in his room, he injects himself with a double dose of the strange medicine. So Tim starts to worry about him as he believes he is becoming an addict. At dawn, things get worse because Daryl wakes up unable to move his limbs, which leaves Tim even more worried, who is looking for a way to help him with a drug pamphlet. The doctor scolds him for taking an excessive dose. This eliminated the sensitivity of his receptors, causing him to only feel 4 of the 5 senses, which means that one of them will be absent for a certain time and will constantly change. For a moment he won't be able to feel, then he won't be able to see, and then he won't be able to hear. And the worst part is that there is no medical solution, he just has to wait for the drug to leave his body within 3 days. Doctor, the next 3 days are going to decide my life. Despite the competition being just hours away, Daryl is left waiting helplessly as his senses shut down unpredictably. During the discussion with the doctor, he suddenly stops hearing. The Knicks game quickly arrives, where Daryl meets the executive Bob and the potential client of the company. But his hearing begins to fail, causing him to unknowingly repeat what others say to him. During the national anthem, he shouts disrespectfully. After buying beers, he suddenly loses his vision and can't find his way back. He accidentally sits next to players trash-talking their team and is violently thrown onto the field as a result. Surprisingly, despite the plan's failure, Rhonda informs him that the potential client will accept the deal, because he found everything our protagonist did very funny, even though the executive is not happy with his attitude. Later, a sexy girl comes looking for Daryl because she has been attracted to him since she met him in college. And even though she proposes to make love, everything becomes confusing for him because he can't hear her. Regardless of this, she starts kissing him, but everything goes wrong because with his random lack of senses, he starts to fail. His arms, his mouth, and also his little friend, causing the girl to run away. To make matters worse, Janice arrives just then, thinking Daryl has cheated on her. Within minutes, Tim arrives with a group of boys who, seeing him unconscious, assume he has overdosed. His best friend attended a detox group, believing Daryl is still an addict. And upon regaining consciousness, our protagonist tries to explain what's really going on. That night, he tries out to join Scott's fraternity, successfully making it through without any issues. His powers and subsequent loss of senses lead to a ridiculous defeat in the hockey game. He also chooses to visit Janice's home to express regret for the incident, but is unable to identify his companion. He gives a whole romantic speech to the girl's father, who turns out to be Randall. Defeated, single, and nervous about the final position test, he studies with Tim while Scott has a team of professionals helping him prepare. On evaluation day, Daryl is dressed like a full-fledged executive. Upon exiting the taxi, he goes completely blind, prompting him to seek help from a suspicious man. The problem is that this man takes him to an alley where he beats him up and steals his elegant suit, leaving him completely naked. Unable to see, he enters a nearby clothing store and ends up choosing a very peculiar suit. To worsen the situation, he involuntarily urinates on himself. This realization reveals the drug is wearing off, and he must now learn to control himself. Upon arriving at the meeting, he says he wears that particular suit because he is allergic to other fabrics. He becomes a finalist alongside Scott in the competition. An executive asks his opponent a question, which Daryl answers impressively. To break the tie, the university professor poses a key question with which Scott is eliminated, while our protagonist manages to demonstrate everything he knows, becoming the winner of the position. Amidst the celebration, he confesses to cheating his way to this point using an experimental drug. He apologizes to the executives. By telling the truth, the committee decides not to award an analyst this year. Randall tells him that he started at the bottom with hard work, and for that reason, he will give him a second chance after graduation to work in the mailroom, and from there he can grow professionally. 1 year later, a large celebration is held at Daryl's house after he finally became an analyst at the company. He's in a relationship with Janice and is taking his family to a luxurious apartment. This was nonsense. Don't forget to like, comment on what other movies you want to see on the channel, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss the upcoming videos.